Floridians were bracing on Wednesday for the potentially catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. Helene entered the Gulf of Mexico that afternoon and was forecast to rapidly strengthen into a Category 4 storm as it picks up strength from the Gulf's warm waters, with winds up to 156 miles per hour, before making an expected landfall Thursday evening in Florida's Panhandle. National Hurricane Center Deputy Director Jamie Rome said that meant potentially, quote, catastrophic wind impacts for those in the path of the storm. In the city of Clearwater, people filled sandbags on Wednesday as they prepared for a potentially life-threatening storm surge, which could reach as high as 20 feet in the Big Bend area, north of Clearwater, where the storm is expected to hit.
I'm worried about the storm surge, the water that could be 4 to 8 feet in my house, and I lose everything. We came out here and we're actually having a really good time getting prepped with everybody and getting input on how everybody is prepping. So it's been really good, and it's helping me to calm down and come here with my community.
The National Hurricane Center said Helene was expected to dump up to 15 inches of rain in some spots after making landfall, causing severe flooding. Rome noted about half of lives lost in hurricanes typically come from flash flooding, often among people who drive into flooded roads and are swept away. He urged those in affected areas to use caution. The Hurricane Center said more than 40 million people in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama were under hurricane and tropical storm warnings. Evacuations were ordered along Florida's Gulf Coast, and dozens of counties have announced school closures.
It once boasted 47 straight years of profits, but now Southwest Airlines is under mounting pressure. On Thursday, executives and investors gather in Dallas, Texas to discuss a turnaround plan. The low-cost airline has seen passenger numbers stuck below pre-pandemic levels, even while costs have ballooned. That has all but wiped out profit margins and caused its shares to lose about 40% of their value over the past 3 years. In response, activist shareholder Elliott Investment Management has launched a campaign to oust Chief Executive Bob Jordan. It also wants to replace 2/3 of the board. The fund is demanding a special shareholder meeting as soon as next week to drive through the changes. So far, Southwest has stood firm, though, refusing to let Jordan go. It's called him the right leader to deliver change, but now has to show it has a plan to deliver on the promise. Some details have already been shared, including a move to assigned seating and extra legroom seats to attract premium travelers. But analysts want more detail and say the airline is in peril if it doesn't execute the plan well. Southwest has already started trimming routes in a bid to reduce overcapacity. This week it slashed services to Atlanta and asked hundreds of staff to relocate. But some challenges are outside its control, including big delays in the delivery of new jets from Boeing. Southwest gets all its planes from the U.S. giant, which has faced a host of problems over quality and now a major strike. That leaves the airline expecting just 20 new jets this year, or less than a quarter of the number originally scheduled. The delays leave it stuck with older, less efficient aircraft, driving up costs even further.
The US, France and their allies called for an immediate 21-day ceasefire along the Israel-Lebanon border on Wednesday, while also supporting one in Gaza after emergency talks among the UN Security Council. The ceasefire would apply to the Israel-Lebanon Blue Line, allowing both sides to seek a diplomatic solution, according to a senior official in the Biden administration. The statement released by the White House said, quote, "We call on all parties, including the governments of Israel and Lebanon, to endorse the temporary ceasefire immediately," and was backed by allies including Australia, the UAE, Saudi Arabia and the EU. Earlier in the day, Israel had expanded airstrikes in Lebanon, killing 72 people according to Lebanese health ministry statements, with a possible ground assault raising concerns of a wider war. The senior Biden official said that Washington had been working for months to rein in hostilities between Israel and Lebanon, and that it had been a focus of, quote, almost every discussion President Joe Biden was having with world leaders this week. Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati had addressed the UN Security Council earlier in the day.
Lebanon today is victim to an enemy that is using electronic, cyber, sea, and air attacks against us that could turn into a ground attack and set the stage for an all-out regional war. I hope to return to my country armed with your explicit stance, calling for the cessation of this aggression out of respect for the sovereignty and safety of my country.
Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon then defended his country's actions to the council.
Israel does not seek a full-scale war. We have made our desire for peace clear to all those who are not blinded by hatred and political agendas. However, Israel is under attack.
Meanwhile, Iran reiterated its support for Hezbollah, warning of further escalation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was due to arrive in New York on Thursday and address the UN General Assembly on Friday.
OpenAI is headed for a big shake-up, including an end to its non-profit status. 3 top technical leaders at the ChatGPT maker quit Wednesday. Chief Technology Officer Mira Murati was among them. She was often the public face of the startup, alongside Chief Executive Sam Altman. It's just the latest in a string of departures during a tumultuous year. Earlier Wednesday, Reuters reported that the AI company planned to drop its non-profit status. Instead, it will restructure as a for-profit benefit corporation, and that move will see Altman get a big equity stake. Right now, OpenAI does have a for-profit wing, but it's controlled by the non-profit board, an unusual setup that has led to turbulence. In November last year, Altman was ousted by the board over a loss of trust, only to be reinstated 5 days later. OpenAI is also now in the middle of a big new fundraising round. It aims to secure $6.5 billion in new investment, and will see the company valued at around $150 billion. But the round is contingent on the restructuring going through, and it's not clear if the executive departures could have a bearing on the outcome. Earlier this year, chief scientist and co-founder Ilya Sutskever was among those to leave OpenAI, going on to launch his own startup. Fellow co-founder John Schulman then left to join rival AI outfit Anthropic.
South Korea has set itself the task of rehoming almost 500,000 dogs bred for food, and announced it will give dog farmers subsidies and incentives to help them prepare for a ban on the practice, set to take effect in early 2027. The Agriculture Ministry said on Thursday authorities will try to get as many of the animals adopted or rehomed in shelters as possible. Support for the ban has grown under President Yoon Suk-yeol, an animal lover with 6 dogs and 8 cats. But South Korea has more than 1,500 dog breeding farms and more than 200 dog slaughterhouses, and some 2,300 restaurants still serve dog meat. South Korea's Vice Minister of Agriculture, Park Byom-soo, said the government would spend $75 million on incentives for breeders, farmers and eateries to encourage them to shut their businesses.
Although many are concerned the remaining dogs might be euthanized, I can certainly say that's not our plan.
Farmers can get up to $452 for each dog they surrender, but head of the Korean Association of Edible Dog, Ju Yong-bong, says businesses want a better deal.
We will close our business only when there's reasonable compensation first. However, the government support plan is not reasonable at all, so we decided not to shut down our businesses until the government provides compensation which is similar to 3 years' revenue.
Animal rights groups welcome the plan as an important milestone, but some say animal shelters can't handle the expected influx of animals. A controversial, centuries-old tradition, eating dog meat was once seen as a way to improve stamina in the humid Korean summer. But the practice has become rare as more Koreans consider dogs as pets, and as criticism of how the dogs are slaughtered has grown.